joined today by Alexander Scanlon, Managing Director of Barton Gold Holdings. Alexander, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Listed less than 12 months, but many years in the making. Can you tell us the history of Barton Gold?
Yeah, look, going back to 2016 and 2017, a team of investment professionals I was working with, we looked around at the market and said, what really are going to be the driving factors for the next 10, 15, 20 years? And around that time, it wasn't too hard to forecast that you would have a lot of inflationary pressures, a lot of credit issues, and certainly a lot of geopolitical instability. So gold became a key factor. We looked around Australia at some very large, some preeminent assets, but really looking at sort of strategic acquisitions and where we could consolidate an actual district quite quietly. We settled on South Australia. It's an area that is very, very richly mineralized in the Gawler Creighton. South Australia has about a quarter of Australia's gold resources, but only 2.5% of production. So it's very, very underrepresented. And that has a lot to do with the fact that it's been underinvested. So a lot of assets there that have really attractive structure that's untested. And as we have gone into these assets, what we've done is we've assembled essentially all of the significant historical gold producing assets or gold exploration assets in Central South Australia. We have also acquired the only regional gold mill. So we've got now a majority of JORC resources in the Central Gawler Creighton for gold, as well as the only mill, and that gives us sort of two strategic power bases.
Why did the Gawler Creighton stand out so much?
It really has to do with the structure that's there. Not a lot of modern work has been done in the central portion of the Gawler Creighton. So obviously to the eastern margins where you have the IOCG belt, you have host minerals, right? So Carapatina, Prominent Hill, you also have Olympic Dam. The central Gawler Creighton, which is where you have, for lack of better terms, the gold belt, is driven by the same intrusive structure, so the Hiltaba granite intrusives that powered and mobilized mineralization up into the IOCG belt. But again, with all the structure that's there, it's actually been really underworked. It hasn't been systemically tested. It hasn't had a lot of new technology. And for the past 30 years, really as a consequence of the gold price declining in the late 90s and everyone sort of moving to Western Australia, where mineralization is predominantly outcropping, it's just been underworked. So it's really actually it's known to be very structurally rich, fertile terrain that is also very fertile for exploration because you don't have to try to identify a different thesis to something that's been disproven before. To the contrary, everything that we are testing is coming up as validating structure in mineralization. So we're basically rapidly expanding our footprints there and looking toward a really large-scale, long-term development.
So talk us through the last 6 months. What have been some of the highlights?
Yeah, so when we IPO'd last year in June, we raised $15 million. So the idea was to essentially overcapitalize and make sure that we can go very hard on exploration for a long period of time. Within a week of listing, we were drilling on targets that we had already identified through previous or pre-IPO work. In October, November, we announced multiple new discoveries. So we have an existing open pit at our Tarcoola project. And at the end of that pit, we identified a new high-grade gold zone that extends essentially directly from the pit wall that was not known to the previous owners. So again, really illustrates how underinvested that asset is unto itself. But we also identified a system or a series of repeating shears and structures, which are analogous to the shear that created that high-grade pit. At our Tunkillia project, we identified 2 new gold zones for about 1.5 kilometers of new mineralization. And to put that in context, our existing resource, which we published before IPO, is about 965,000 ounces in what we call our 2G3 deposit. That deposit's 2.5 kilometers long. It's fairly shallow, and it's open to depth and along strike. So with only about 4,000 meters of drilling outside of that deposit, we've extended the total mineralized footprint of that project, which currently hosts almost 1 million ounces, by 60%. So what we're finding is that everything that we're testing is just extending. So we've added a 66% increase to strike in our main projects. It takes us to about 5 kilometers of mineralization. And what we're doing this year is essentially leaning into that, right? So we've done a lot more technical work. We've got a lot of geochemical, geophysical, and drilling work going on. We're drilling now. And the idea is to really step out and build this footprint at both those projects because we're the first people to own them together in a portfolio and have a co-exploration and co-development focus, so we can really target economies of scale, and there's a lot of optionality between the two.
And apart from having exciting projects in a great jurisdiction, you're also bolstering your board with a recent high-profile appointment.
Correct, yeah. So what we're doing now is really fully transitioning our corporate identity into being 100% South Australian. So strange though it may seem, we are the only pure play South Australian gold explorer on the ASX. Everybody has, copper elsewhere, or, nickel elsewhere, a different state. And what we're doing now is really building up that corporate profile as well. So we've been fortunate enough to be joined by Ken Williams, who's the former CFO of Normandy Mining, obviously sort of a legendary Australian mining enterprise. So he has joined us as a non-executive director, and he will be taking the helm as non-executive chairman from the 1st of July. So we're very excited about that, and really just kind of reflects our ongoing commitment to the state and the fact that we really are focused in one place and going the distance.
Focused, excited, a really impressive portfolio of assets, a company to watch. Barton Gold. Alexander, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.